Good morning once again, and welcome to the 148th of our 365 Bible studies. At the moment, we're looking at the statutes and laws of Old Israel. We're looking particularly at the moment at laws relating to human behaviour towards God and worship. And today we're looking at the description of the Passover that we find in the book of Deuteronomy. This is Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 1 to 8, and I'll turn you round so you can see the text. Moses said, "You are to honour Yahweh your God by celebrating the Passover. In the month of Abib, on the evening when he rescued you from Egypt, you must go to the unique place of worship. And there you must slaughter one of your sheep or cattle for the Passover meal in honour of Yahweh your God. When you eat it, avoid bread made with yeast. For 7 days only eat unleavened bread, as you did when you had to leave Egypt in a hurry. Call this the bread of misery. And remember all your life the day you came out of the misery you suffered there. That week, throughout the land, no yeast is to be kept at home, and all the meat killed that evening should be eaten that night. You should slaughter your Passover animals only at the one place of worship, and nowhere else in the land Yahweh will give you. Slaughter them at sunset, which is when you left Egypt. Stew the meat there and eat it there, and go home the next morning. For the next 6 days, eat unleavened bread, and on day 7, gather to worship Yahweh your God, and do not work." As we have seen in recent days, particularly on day 145, this springtime festival is what was to become for Christians Holy Week and Easter. Its origins, however, go deep, way back, earliest of all to the nomadic lifestyle, and later to the origins of settled agriculture. Back to spring every year, when the surplus smaller and weaker male offspring of sheep and cattle would have to be slaughtered, leaving the stronger male animals for breeding stock and as useful muscle power. And amongst settled farmers, back to each springtime when the first loaves were baked without yeast on hot stones, flatbread made from the first grains harvested each year. Join these really ancient celebrations up with that spring when the children of Israel escaped from Egypt, eating in a hurry before leaving, and you have all the elements of the original Passover celebration. The editors of Deuteronomy, into its final form, knew all too well that not everyone in Israel would fit into Jerusalem to slaughter their lambs, and they knew what a mess it would have made if they tried. The scene described here fits in much better with a compact band of nomads with their sheep, gathering round the meeting tent at the edge of camp with their sharp knives, their firewood, and their cauldrons of water ready for a feast. And that is where I think this primitive description of a communal alfresco Passover comes from. By the time of Jesus, the elaborate Passover as modern Jews celebrate it, as well as Christian versions of the same thing, had been established, with the traditional courses of meal, the hand washings and the toasts, and the remembrance of the plagues of Egypt and the escape across the dry seabed. Jesus turned the hand washing into a foot washing to emphasize that God was at the service of humans in the ensuing events, that he drove the point home by making the bread of misery, the bread of affliction, into a sign of his impending suffering, and the cup of blessing at the end into a sign of his atoning sacrifice. that would reveal him as the Lamb of God, taking away human sin and its consequences. Tomorrow, we have the Deuteronomic take on Harvest Festival, and I'll see you for that tomorrow.